Hi everyone, this is Sergey Gusev. Welcome back to this channel. Today I will continue talking about portraits and show you how to paint a portrait in alla prima technique during one sitting. I usually recommend to paint a lot of alla primas every week to improve your skills, get new knowledge, get a lot of practice and experience. And so I'm gonna show you how to make it. We have a canvas quite small, 12 times 12 inches, and oil paints. I'm not going to make any underdrawing or underpainting just because we usually do not have enough time. I start from a quick sketch with oils, mapping out the lights and shadows, big spots. I do not care for details at all. I will work on them a little bit at the very end. I use colors usually directly from the tubes and then blend them on the canvas. You can do it on the palette as well, it's up to you. So the question is, who can paint like this? Who can use this alla prima technique? Actually anyone, but in my opinion it's quite important to have some experience. So if you just decide to learn how to work in oils, how to paint portraits, alla prima is going to be a very complicated technique for you, because I think it's quite important to have some experience, some practice, some skills and special knowledge. We need to know a lot. We need to understand the head construction, the construction of the facial details. We need to have some skills in drawing and color mixing, understand what cool and warm shades mean, and so on. So actually you can use this technique, but it's much easier to paint longer, not just during one sitting, but maybe within a few sittings or maybe even a few weeks. So your first portrait can be quite long. Another important thing that, in my opinion, it's quite important to start learning how to work on the portraits from drawing some simple forms. I mean, usually plaster forms, plaster casts like a sphere, cube, cylinder, pyramid, very basic shapes the head figure consists of. Because if you decide to start painting portraits from scratch, you can get disappointed in your skills. Maybe you will be very upset because it's not going like you wanted to go. It happens not because you do not have a talent. No, usually it happens just because you do not have enough practice. And usually if you go to any art school or private studio, you will start learning how to draw from drawing very simple things like I mentioned, plaster casts, not portraits or figures from life. It's too complicated for beginners. So, who can apply this technique? Anyone could, but if you want to make the process much easier, full of positive emotions, I will recommend you to start working first of all on very simple things and forms. But let's say you have some experience, it's not your first painting, and then of course you can try alla prima. Remember that we have to keep in mind a lot of important things like the head construction, proportions. We need to understand at least a little bit in the human anatomy. If you know all of this, you can try to paint alla prima. Usually when working on alla prima, I do not suggest using a lot of medium. I personally like to paint quite impasto, and so using colors directly from the tubes. And then I use them as a sculptor, almost as a sculptor working with clay. So I work on the construction using big masses of light and shadow. It's very convenient, and in my opinion this is the best way of using and applying the alla prima technique. I always start working with bristle brushes, usually using middle size, not synthetics. I think bristles are more convenient for impasto paintings. You can also use a palette knife, it's up to you. When we figured out the composition, we start setting up the proportions. I don't do any measuring, just judging the proportions visually. And then I continue working on big spots of light and shadow. Getting close to the end, I start thinking more about the details, though I'm not overworking them. I want to make this painting quite sketchy, lively, and then finished. And also remember, we do not have a lot of time to work on the details. So they're coming a little bit here and there, and I also need to pick up a smaller brush when I decide to work on the eyes, on the lips, on the tip of the nose, and so on. Bristles are a little bit too rough for the details. By the way, don't forget that you can get a lot of information about how to paint portraits on my webpage. I have a lot of tutorials made especially for beginners. They are 2, 3, 6, and sometimes even 9 hours long. Very detailed. I show my palette, they all have voiceover, and they give a lot of information for beginners on how to paint portraits in oils. Check them out, I'm sure they will help you out a lot. And also don't forget that some of my tutorials you can stream on my Patreon. Follow the links in the description. Okay, I continue working on the portrait using the same bristle brush. I remember about the warm and cool shades, it's quite important. We can play with the colors and you don't have to paint exactly as you see on the source picture or in the live. You can make the colors more interesting, more saturated, make the shadows slightly warmer and the lights cooler. It's gonna make a very interesting painterly effect in your portrait. Remember to paint some things quite soft, especially in the shadows. Care for the edges, make them soft. Remember that we have foreground and background. In the foreground we have the tip of the nose, and so it can be painted a little bit sharper. All the further edges we do softer, especially when things get close to the backgrounds. We paint them very soft. I think if you want to improve your painting skills, you need to do a lot of alla primas and maybe concentrate mostly on the colors, on color mixing, not so much on the drawing. I know it sounds weird, but maybe you don't have to care even for the likeness. Try to get some experience in color mixing. Make colors different, do some experiments, paint somehow else but not as you used to paint. Right now I am working a little bit on the details. Picked up my small flat synthetic, correcting the shape of the eyes, correcting the shape of the irises. I'm painting the reflection in the iris, maybe a little bit fixing the eyelids and so on. Again, When working on Alla Prima, we do not have enough time to finish completely. We work only on the most important things. And in my opinion, it's the big spots of light and shadow, relationships, tonal and color relationships, and so on. There's no need to paint the background completely. Again, as I mentioned, I want to make it slightly unfinished and have this sketchy effect, so I'm not gonna paint the backgrounds all over the painting. Though it's up to you, you can paint it as you want. But I prefer to spend more time on the portrait, so I'm quickly getting back to the painting, correct a little bit the proportions of the face, adding some thicker brush strokes into the lights, and I think that quite soon I'm done. I don't want to overdo this portrait. Again, it's just a quick study. Let me know in the comments down here if you like these Alla Primas, if you want to see more of them. How often do you paint them, and do you feel that painting Alla Primas helps you to improve your painting skills? Subscribe to this channel and share this video with your friends. If you like it, put thumbs up. And don't forget to follow me on social media, Facebook and Instagram. Remember that the full video tutorials are available on my webpage, and also you can stream them on my Patreon. I think I'm gonna make some final brush strokes here and there, and that's it. I wish you good luck with your own artworks, guys, and see you quite soon on this channel in my new episode.